Hello and welcome to the Bride Center podcast. I'm your host, Estee Gordon, and I'm here to tend to the brides like I tend to the bar. So mix yourself a cocktail and let's get ready to discuss all things weddings. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Brittany Lo from Beautini to the podcast. Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have you
Thank
here.
you. I'm so excited to be here with you. I really appreciate it.
We're going to talk about all of your ventures because I know you are like a businesswoman that's got all these things going on and I want everybody to hear about it. But first I wanted to ask you, like, how are you doing, with the pandemic? How are you doing throughout everything?
So funny enough, I was at a wedding conference in Dubai, like the first week of March. I get back and I think I had a few days in the office, and that Friday I had to close the office because of COVID, and the shit hit the fan. It was pretty crazy. And just like a difficult time because it's not just us like having to work hard, but it's like we have all these couples having to postpone a wedding that they spent over a year planning, and there was no real guidance on what we could provide in terms of when it would be safe to have another wedding, when the pandemic would be over. So it was definitely hard to navigate, but I have an amazing team that helped a ton with making sure our couples felt taken care of, and we reassured them that we would figure it out. So we postponed a lot of weddings. Some of them are postponing into 2022, but I am honestly excited for the fall season of 2021.
Me too. I'm hoping and praying that we have a somewhat normalish fall 2021
Yes.
because I remember when the pandemic like first started and that Friday was like March 13th and then it was like by March 17th like everything was closed. And I met with one of my clients on March 12th and they were getting married in May and they're like, "Do you think we have anything to worry about?" And we were like, no,
No, of
because
course not. Yeah, no.
this is such a fluke. And like before we know it, now we're like 10 months later and still living
Still.
alternate reality.
So I assume that they had to postpone.
They did, yeah. They actually had postponed to August of 2020 and postponed again to
Uh,
May of this year. So, yeah, so things are still a little up in the air.
yep. But
Uh,
hopefully we'll have some answers, some guidance. Like I will say we've gotten a lot of bookings and inquiries in the last few weeks. So I do think that the ones that have dates for this year and next year are like ready to plan, ready to go. And the confidence is at an all-time high.
Yeah. I think people are also so over like
Yes.
having to wait that they're like, I'd rather do something smaller and do it than like push it off and still be unknown.
Agreed. And I think that's why there is that shift in confidence because they're like, listen, I'm getting married on this date no matter what, whether it's two people there or 200, like count me in. And I think that's just a good mindset. And I think that the special part of these micro weddings and ceremonies that had happened in 2020 and even what we're seeing now is that people are really understanding why they're getting married. It's not about like all the amazing designs and fluffs. Like that's always like that makes an incredible wedding, of course, but ultimately people are having intimate weddings with just their family members, just their partner, and they're there for the right reasons. And
Right.
so I know like my team's loving the micro weddings because they get to spend more time with the couple, and it's been really great.
Yeah. I think micro weddings is actually like a trend that we're going to see go on even once like COVID isn't a thing. I think it's like it is the future of the business. So now you have this business, Beautini. How
Mhm.
did you get started? What are some things your company offers? Like, what could you tell the listeners about your company?
So Beautini is a hair and makeup services. Sorry, three. I'm sorry. Beautini is a hair and makeup service company based in Manhattan, New York, and so we specialize in weddings and events. So we'll go day of wherever the bride is, wherever the event may be, and we create this ultimate experience with bubbly robes, hair, makeup. And I actually wrote in my second grade journal that one day I would have a beauty company, and so from that point on, like I always said, that's what I wanted to do. I went to Babson College, which is known for entrepreneurship, for me to understand like what it takes to start a business. And then after college, I was supposed to go to L'Oreal corporate full time. And instead, I turned it down. I worked part time at Sony as I was finalizing my investments for Beautini, and ended up doing Beautini instead. And it'll be 6 years March 1st.
Yeah. So you were like a really young like business owner.
Funny enough, I did not tell anyone my age, especially in the industry, until I turned, I think, 27 or 28 maybe. I like always was very fearful of being a young entrepreneur in the wedding space, because it is all about like the years of experience you've had and who's been in it for so long. And I knew that I really saw there was a white space for the beauty segment of weddings, and I knew I could create a really awesome brand and a really great company. And I didn't want age to be a factor of reasons why a planner or someone would not use us. So I honestly kept that hush hush and pretended I was so much older until I felt like it was appropriate for me to say how old I was.
Honestly, I feel like I would have done the same thing. I probably have done that on a few occasions, actually. And it's funny that you knew exactly what you wanted from a young age. I actually have a very similar situation. I knew I always wanted to be an event planner. And I recently looked through my yearbook, my 2010 high school reunion, like high school yearbook. And in there, it says like, where do you see yourself in, it said 30 years. So like,
Okay.
I mean, I'm like not even close to that, but it said, I plan to be an event planner, like creating great events. And
Wow. Isn't
it
that
was so
funny?
funny.
Like,
Yeah.
and I will say that our paths are very unique, where a lot of people don't know what they want. My sister is a senior in high school right now, and she's like, do I want to be a doctor? Do I want to be a lawyer? Do I want to go into computer science? And I think it's fine. I think that sometimes, like even for me, like for years and years and years since second grade, I just had blinders on. Or I was like, I'm gonna make a beauty company. That's all I'm gonna do. If there's an opportunity that arises and it doesn't align with that direction, I'm not going to even entertain it. And so during the pandemic, I definitely worked on just being more open minded on opportunities that may be unplanned to arise and see where they take me. So I think that it is both a blessing and a curse to know what you want too early on.
It's definitely a blessing and a curse. I think the way that it's a curse is that sometimes like you said, having blinders on, that you feel like you're like, if you do something else, it's almost like for me, I feel this way, like it's like a failure, because you're like, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But I think in a time like now, so many people have had to reinvent the wheel,
Mm-hmm.
see what other things are they good at that they can tap into if they can't financially do it within what they're good at, or trained to do.
I
And
agree.
so many people are seeing that in so many industries.
I agree completely.
Now, on that note, in this time, I feel like you've been able to, thrive, because you also started this podcast. You have your own podcast, Cake for Breakfast, which I mean, I love, because I feel like cake could be for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or snack.
I love
so,
that.
so I feel like, and it's not necessarily beauty related. You kind of have a little bit of like everything in there. You talk about business, you talk about fashion, you talk about pop culture, and you've been able to kind of still hold on to who you are and the things that you want, while also adding on something else that you're good at.
Yes. And I will say I give huge props to my co-host Jess, because I met her when actually a past client recommended me for a TV show. Jess had recently left Wall Street to enter the entertainment industry and was helping out with that show pitch. Never actually got bought, but in that process of her like pitching a show and like me being a part of it, we got to know each other in like very different backgrounds. She's from Canada, I'm from New York, like finance versus small business girl who loves beauty. And so she reached out to me in July and was like, listen, I want to start this podcast. Like the host that I was going to do it with, like we didn't work out. Will you do it? And I was like, I don't listen to podcasts, celebrity gossip. Like I don't read People magazine on the reg. Like I don't know if this is really my thing, but I think during the pandemic, I had a lot of time to like sit with myself and really think about what I want. And something that I was pushing myself to do was to challenge myself to like get out of just the Beautini mode. Like obviously we're in a pandemic. We're not going to be crazy with weddings. So how else could I stretch myself and challenge myself to try new things? And I gave myself a month, and I think that's important, where it wasn't like when you make a decision, sometimes people paralyze themselves thinking it's the end of the world if they don't make the right decision. I said, I'll commit 1 month. Let's see how it goes. And honestly, it's been amazing because it pushes me and gets me excited to skim the news every day. And like just understand like all the consumer stocks and like what's going on with companies directly relates to the stock market. And so I've never been into like stocks and trading and all of that. But it's allowed me to learn a lot more and just have a like more sophisticated conversation with whoever I'm with. And like you said, we do cover like business, like we'll talk about Cody acquiring Kylie Cosmetics and KKW for hundreds of millions of dollars. But then we'll also talk about Army Hammer and all of the freaky cannibalism comments that he's had with multiple women. Or we'll talk about like Netflix's earnings period and what that looks like. And so it pushes me again, like I'm not, like I think that for years and years and years, it was all about like business and it was all about like beauty in the wedding space. And now I have to be looking at Business Insider on the regular, Wall Street Journal, whatever it is, New York Times, and constantly be reading. And so I'm allowed to contribute what I learned to the podcast, but also like into my daily life, which I really like.
Yeah. I think that it's so good within this time because it kind of gives you that time to focus on that. Like I keep saying that even though we've been dealing with this pandemic for like 10 months, that it's still weird for me to be home as much as I am when I'm used to being out all the time.
Yes.
Now I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to be home, I need to like get some shit accomplished. Like,
I love that.
and now I'm like, so even teaching myself how to like record the podcast, upload it, like edit it, put it on YouTube, put it on every streaming platform. It was a whole new thing and it was a little stressful. I'm not going to like say
Yes.
it's like all roses because that would be a lie. And but I went to college for communications and have like a background in PR and TV production. And
Okay.
that PR side I used for years hand in hand with events. So now I'm like tapping into this other side of like media that I always loved, but really it just didn't mesh with my world. And now it does.
See, it's so funny because even I grew up catering weddings on weekends in high school and then on my breaks of college. And then I started Beautini and we were going to be more of like a glam squad, like on the go for meetings, birthday parties, events, what you need. And then I had a lot of people reach out, be like, hey, do you specialize in weddings? I can't find a brand that aligns with my vision. And I ended up being like, wow, weddings is a great opportunity. And it's just funny how things come full circle when you least expect it. And even for this podcast that again is like business and celebrity gossip and pop culture, now like we recently have interviewed Allie Webb, who's the founder of Dry Bar, who like sold her company for hundreds of millions of dollars. Like she has literally been my role model with Beautini for years and years and years. And not because of Beautini, but because of this random podcast opportunity, I can now get in face to face with her, which I would have never been able to do if I didn't have this different platform. So I think it's really important to like not be so linear in terms of how you think about your career path, even your life. Like I really struggle with, okay, I need to get married by this time and like, okay, I need to be like this rich by this age. And then you just get yourself in this tizzy where you're going to be frustrated and stressed out every step of the way versus just like taking it one step at a time, looking at opportunities that arise. And if it interests you, trying it out before just turning it down.
Well, I can say we're the same person because I stress myself out. I feel like I'm an ageist with myself. Like, I don't care about anybody else. Like, do whatever works for you on your timeline. But when things don't meet my timeline, I'm like, I need a therapy session because it's true. It's when you're like an overachiever also, and you have dreams and you have goals, and then you have everything lined up, and now you work in the wedding industry, but you're not married yet. And you're like,
Mhm.
oh my God, but what about me? Like, when is it
Yeah.
my turn? And so
I know. How many clients still ask you if you're married?
I have ones, they're like, oh my God, you're single? No way. And I'm like, thank you so much. Like, do you have a nice brother or something? Do you have somebody in
True,
do
that's true.
you have a nice groomsman at your wedding? Because
There you
people
go.
think that like, they're like, oh, well, you must meet like guys all the time
Yeah,
at weddings. And it's like, not really, because I'm busy working.
true.
So
Yes.
it's a totally different, like, I'm like,
The
I,
wedding planner movie isn't as accurate as one may think.
yeah, no. If only, right?
Oh my gosh, Matthew McConaughey, yeah.
So you probably won't know this story, but back last January, your team was like one of the vendors at the Intercontinental.
Okay.
And I was there, I was like at the showcase and listening to some of the speakers, and I was wearing my hair in a bun, and I was like, oh my God, can you like fix my bun? Like, whatever you can do. And they're like, okay, we're going to give you a part down the middle. And I was like, oh my God, I never wear my hair down the middle. Like, I was like, I feel like my face is going to look enormous. And they're like, what are you talking about? You're going to look so good with it down the middle. So I was like, okay, fine. Like, whatever. I have nothing to lose. They put it down the middle and put my hair like back in a bun. And now I always wear my hair down the
No
middle with a bun.
way.
I
Oh, that
swear.
makes me so happy because they definitely pushed me to try different things where I'm like, no, like, I don't know. But then you're like surprised because when people see you and your structure and your hair texture, like they obviously know what they're doing, but it is cool to like figure out like, oh, actually down the middle works for me too. Okay. I like
I
that.
know. I always was like, no, I look terrible with my hair down the middle. And now I'm like, I'm a girl that wears my hair down the middle.
That's
Like,
so funny. I love that story.
that's so funny, right? I was like, people
Yes.
appreciate that story.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, your team is like bringing the trends forward one bun
Woohoo.
at a time. And I want to ask you actually like about trends, because hair and makeup, we always see things differently like over the years of what's popular, what's in, what's not. Now it's like we live in a land of extensions, which I love, by the
Me
way.
too. Me too.
Totally, like, now I actually just bought myself extensions because I use them for a photo shoot, and now I'm like, how did I ever live without these?
That's amazing.
They're the best. And I was thinking, like, back in the day, like when our moms got married, like things were like more subtle. And
Mhm.
now we're living where it's like people are more dramatic with their makeup. They're, willing to take like maybe more risks with their hair of like what it will look like. What are some trends that you see going on? You know,
Well, so I'd say like a handful of years ago, you'd see like airbrush was more in, like you wanted to have like Instagrammy looks, like very contoured and like just like lots of makeup, lots of hair. But then slowly, even like I always like for Beautini, first off, we do more like red carpet looks and like traditional bridal. But I like even the past 2 years, like people want like that Victoria's Secret effortless waves rather than like short sausage curls in their hair, right? So we're seeing it where people want to look like very natural in the sense that people they still look like themselves, but the best version of them. So that's like using the lashes, but like making their skin look like skin, their hair have like a bend in it, so it doesn't look like a perfect curl. But obviously, there took a lot of technique to look like that. So it's almost like that, like I woke up like this type of effort where it's like, oh wait, you think I look beautiful? Oh, I got ready in like a few minutes. It just happened to be my wedding day type of vibe. Um, and so like, I think there is definitely some who like I love the Kardashian looks where like you really get that contour, you really play up the eyes. The skin still looks glowy, it still looks like skin at the end of the day. I think moving forward, especially with the pandemic, people have spent a lot of money on skincare over makeup because they haven't been seeing people. And I do think that people are just taking better, I think people are taking better care of their skin, and skin is the canvas of your makeup. And I think people who might have not had, like, might not have loved their skin before the pandemic, and now like they have clear, beautiful skin, people are, I think, are going to embrace their skin and their natural features even more. So, and especially if people are just getting used to wearing less. Like I used to always wear like CC cream all over my face and then do like my things. And now it's like, oh, some days I'll just do spot concealer and then do my makeup, and it still looks great, still holds, and I'm happy. So I do think that the brides moving forward are probably going to be embracing more of like that natural glow on their skin and like really play up the eyes with lashes, but not be like dark, heavy looks and like not have like extreme hairstyles. And just like, I think that will truly be a movement moving forward.
Yeah. I think also, I mean, this might be kind of popular, like with your business too, is that a lot of people are doing like ceremony now, reception later. So it's kind of giving them two different looks that
Yes.
they might be doing still their hair and makeup for their ceremony coming up, but like it might not be as like glam as what they're planning to do for their reception because it's
Yes.
not as like, you know, bigger. It's not as big as it was supposed to be the first time around.
Yes. And when I say natural beauty, that's like more like natural glam. Like I don't mean people are like, I don't really need makeup on my wedding day anymore. Absolutely not. They just want it very refined. And like people are very like, a lot of our clients are very knowledgeable on like what brands they like, what works for them. Especially when it comes, and they are willing to invest in keeping their skin and hair amazing leading up to the wedding day. And what we are definitely seeing is that people have been dying for their wedding. So like either they're breaking it up or they're doing like one hairstyle for the ceremony and then changing it for the reception, doing a bold lip for the rehearsal dinner. Like people are just taking risk, which I love, and just putting a lot of time on like how they present themselves with their outfits, and like maybe it's a jumpsuit over a dress, and then just having more fun, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And it's giving you, I said this on last week's episode. I spoke to Michael Andrews from Michael Andrews Bespoke. And
Yes.
we were talking about how like suits, and we were talking about like custom tuxes for the men, but also just that a lot of, you know, women for their ceremonies now are going with like the cream suit opposed to maybe wearing a dress on that day because they're saving their dress for the larger reception.
We've actually had a few clients who did micro weddings in 2020 and then a big reception in 2021. I think at least two of them had like a jumpsuit or like a white suit instead, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
And it's like when you're the bride, that's really the time that you are going to be wearing white. So like pull out all those white outfits because you
Yes.
might as well get them all in. you you are like a professional businesswoman. You have it all going on, you know, like you got the beauty company. You know, what some people might not know is that like you've become like really an influencer in fashion, in business, in beauty. And like how do you bring it all together? Like how did you get out there?
I think just like connecting. So when I started Beautini, so I was 22 years old, just graduated, moved to a new city, didn't know anyone in the wedding space, but decided like I was nowhere near getting married. I haven't had a boyfriend since like this 5 months ago, basically. And so it wasn't really like that. I really don't think you need to like have your foot in the door, but I just reached out to a lot of people and ask them if they knew anyone that they thought I would get along with, try to just be like help put together dinner parties or events and just try to attend any networking events possible. Like I tried, and I like would some weeks go to like 20 events a week and just like meet new people, like put like just show up and just find ways to connect with people I might not know, keep seeing friends in the industry that I love, because eventually, and just be open to opportunities again. So like with Beautini, like, you know, there was a party slate launch party We did the Wish Upon a Wedding party. There was like a Four Seasons launch party. There's just a lot of events where people obviously need services for. And so whenever people will ask, like 99.9% of the time, I'll say, absolutely, we can certainly be there. And it just allows us to like get our name out there. And then with all the networking, it allowed me to get out there too. Um, and I think it's just like putting yourself out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And look, with everything I'm doing, like I've always stayed focused, only Beautini, like being focused on that. And now I'm trying a few different new revenue streams. And it's just coming with terms of like being mindful of how I dedicate my time between family, work, friends, and my boyfriend, like being able to allocate and still make time for myself and just know like nothing's going to be perfect, but it's much better to do something versus waiting for things to be perfect and then end up not doing anything at all.
I hear that. I think I was one of those people that was like, I was a perfectionist. So I was like waiting to do certain things because, oh, well, like this isn't right yet. It's not done yet. And now I'm at this point of being like, no, like I'm just doing it and I'll continue to learn and get better along the way.
That's huge. Yeah, because you're never going to know. Like, even I have a beauty line I'm working on called Bea. And that's when, like, my ultimate dream is to have a product line. Like, that's when I wrote my second grade journal. Like, that was really the company I had in mind. But I felt like Beautini was a great way to start to learn about women and what they really want when it comes to beauty and use it almost as a proof of concept. And so that's in April. I'm launching with one product just so I can learn and really figure out the process, but I'm like psyching myself out and stressing myself out with all these questions that I don't have answers to. And I just have to remind myself, I'm like, why am I taking all this headspace trying to answer questions that I'm not going to know until we launch? So it's like, let's table those questions, let's table that anxiety and just like focus on what you do know is like, I do need to learn more about social media and paid advertising. I need to learn how to build a proper website. So it's just like I like to take bite sizes of like how can I put this foot in front of the other step by step and not like get too paralyzed by thinking about the big picture.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I'm also like trying to do a lot of different things like regarding like my own brands that like I always put off because it's like I had a full-time job and I had this going on and I had this and I was never home and like now I'm just like I have no excuses like not to be doing what I've been wanting to do. So I hear you on all of that and I think that like the more you do things, the more you learn, the more you grow.
Absolutely. Just gotta try. Like, and I always remember people are like, well, what if people think about this of me? And it's like people are very self-centered naturally, right? So like
Yeah.
people are gonna spend very much they're not going to spend much time on what you're doing and what decisions you're making because they're too caught up with themselves. And once someone told me that, I was like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to do me, let them do them, and we'll move forward in the ways that we're meant to be.
It's true. I know even when I was doing this podcast, I started mine before a few other people in the industry, so to say, like did theirs on weddings and I was like, "Oh my god, like I don't know, I don't want ours to be the same. I don't." And then I'm like, "Why do I even give a shit what they're doing?" I'm like, "I don't. I need like one track mind, stay focused on what I'm doing, like don't worry about what anyone else is doing."
That's awesome. And how long ago did you start this podcast?
The first episode went out, I think it was the end of March. The last week
Really?
of March.
I feel like you had it for so much more longer.
No, so weirdly, I had wanted to do a podcast for a while. I had one set up with 3 of my guy friends from college to do something on like dating in like today's times. And one of them is married. One of them, like the other 2 were like single and like one is straight, one is gay, and there was like me who was like the only like female in the mix. And so the concept was amazing. The first episode that we filmed was hysterical, but like I don't think like everybody was on the same page about like really like giving it the time and it just didn't come to fruition. Like it was like it stayed at that one. We never put it out there. And then I was like, you know what? This is like more my speed. like, this is what I've grown up in the industry. It's time. And I want to stay relevant in what I do in a time where like the hospitality industry is not as relevant.
That's huge. And like even if it didn't work out, you still took that step forward in doing it and led you to your own podcast show.
Yeah. So in the end, I think I was so scared to do it on my own at first. Like I thought like I needed a counterpart. And I think everybody kind of feels that way in business also.
Mhm.
Like it is very scary to do things on your own.
But on the flip side, I think I've always done things alone, and I do like it because you are in full control of your destiny. So you don't have to make sure you guys are on the same speed, or like maybe someone was really interested in the idea and then you get 50-50 in the company, but then you're still with it and they're checked out, moving to a different state. And then it just, I don't think if you don't evolve and have the same vision for the company, it can be pretty scary. Or like for my podcast, like my co-host, she does it full time, and like she's really thinking through like the next steps and the bigger vision, and we brainstorm together, of course. But like I know that I want her to like take the reins, and she is doing a great job. And so like allowing her like to trust her to make some of the longer term decisions is great, because then I am still able to be a part of it in the way that I feel comfortable being part of it and want to be a part of it, and she's able to be in the capacity that she is. So I think it's like having that understanding, but it's not always easy as you start operating.
Yeah. And I've learned that over the years too, that it's just like it's nice to have people to bounce ideas off of, but honestly, it's just about surrounding yourself with the right minded people who also like have your best interests at heart and you have theirs. And it's kind of like if you hang out around other people who are like-minded business women and businessmen, they will help you kind of make some decisions along the way that will work for you that maybe you wouldn't have known offhand without having to be a partner.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. So now you spoke a little bit about that you have like a product coming out
Yes.
in the spring. So what projects should we like look out for from you?
Ooh, great question. So I am creating a beauty wellness brand that's devoted to making self-care sexy, and it's called Bea. We will be launching in April with one product, which will be a mix between a facial mix. Sorry, it'll be a mix between a facial mist and a setting spray. So it has hyaluronic acid, aloe, caffeine, like all these great skincare properties to keep your skin hydrated throughout the day, but additionally has properties of like setting and locking in your makeup while still being a very like clean formula, cruelty free, and just like an amazing product. And so that's our first one, but then I'll eventually get into more of like the sexual wellness space, and dive into more of like that intersect of beauty. So I'm really excited to grow the brand. So yeah, I'd love for anyone listening, if it is April, like our website will be live on beabeauty.com, and I'll be sure to keep you posted as we do get closer to launch.
Oh, definitely. I love a good beauty product.
Yeah, I know. It took me like a year at this point to develop this one product. So I'm excited to finally share it with everyone. And it's been nice because I've been using my Instagram to do different polls on the packaging and the branding, and just get a sense of what people are looking for in their beauty routine and just like their routine in general. So I'm excited that we were able to use all those insights as we develop the product.
Perfect. Well, that's going to be awesome. That's an amazing, amazing accomplishment. And, I know so many people, I'm sure, are going to be out there trying it, and as well as me.
Yeah,
And,
I was happy to hear that. Thank you.
and I mean, it's now you're like getting into like a whole, like not just beauty, but also like having your own products, which is just like, it's just like such a great next step in all of your business ventures.
Thank you. Yeah, the scalability is what I'm really excited about, and being able to reach women all across the country and hopefully eventually the world. Whereas like the services, which I love, is more, like Northeast and more secluded into where I live. So I'm excited to take this next step. The Beautini brides were a huge inspiration as I figured out how to roll out this brand. So I'm hoping it does well and that we can impact some amazing ladies and men. But I'll definitely keep you posted.
Definitely. So I have one more question for you. Everybody who comes on the podcast, I ask this question. What advice do you have for our brides and grooms currently in the midst of planning during a pandemic?
Oh, that is a good question. I would say a helpful tidbit would be maybe creating your vision of what wedding A would look like if everything were to be perfect, and like what would be like your wedding B. So if the pandemic was at an all-time high again, like what would be most important to you? Would it be like you just want to have the most incredible food on that day? You would want to be with your friends, you would want to be with your family, you would want to be on a beach somewhere. Like just figure out like what is really important. And like I think if you can visualize like these two options where it's like, yes, like ideally wedding A would be 300 people or in a New York City ballroom and we have great food. The option B is like if there's less people, that means we can actually spend more on the decor and our flowers are going to be insane. And then that means we can also do a small intimate wedding dinner on the beach or whatever it is. I think it's just being excited about your wedding and being comfortable knowing that no matter what it pans out to be, you're going to have an incredible time.
Absolutely. And I think it's important what you said about having an option A and option B and being able to be comfortable with either option that goes on.
And get excited about it. Because I mean, like, of course, everyone wants amazing decor for their wedding, but maybe it just wasn't in the budget if you wanted to have all 300 of your friends. But hey, if you can only have 50, that means like there's less tables that you need centerpieces for, meaning that you can have an amazing huppa, or you can have the most incredible bouquet now, like, or you can add a flower wall. Like, who knows? It's just like thinking about like the upsides of a wedding bee and getting excited about it just as much, almost as, or if not just as excited as wedding A. So that by the time you get closer to your wedding date, either way, you're feeling really happy and really excited.
I'm with you on that.
I love it.
Now, where can everybody follow you for fashion tips, makeup tips? Plug everything.
Please. So my handle is Brittany, BRITTANY.LO. And Beautini's, especially if you're looking for hair and makeup, our handle is at BEAUTINI. And then the podcast that I have every Tuesday and Thursday is called Cake for Breakfast, which you can find at Cake for Breakfast Podcast or right on Spotify and Apple.
Perfect. Well, Brittany, I am so glad that you came on today. It's been so fun. I honestly feel like I could talk to you forever.
I know. I was like, man, it's already over. That went by so quickly.
I know. I'm like, you got to come back on.
I would love that. Absolutely. Maybe like right when Bea launches, we can plan for something in April. I'd love to do that and maybe dive deeper into like the inspiration from weddings and how that translated to Bea.
Yes, 100%. We can show it. We can show how to put it on. It'll be great.
I'd love that. Thank you. And
Yes.
I really appreciate you taking the time. Like I know that you only have a certain amount of episodes that you do produce on like a weekly basis. And so to have me on as one of your guests means so much.
Oh no, it was so fun. I'm so glad that you had the time to come on my podcast.
Oh my God. Yes, of course. Anytime.
It's been so fun. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Bride Tender Podcast, where we have new episodes every single Monday. You can subscribe and listen on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, and anywhere that you listen to podcasts. We're on every streaming platform. And now we are on YouTube because, people told me I had to be on YouTube. So like, here we go.
That's amazing.
I'm trying over here. I'm really trying. If you're not already following me at The Bride Tender on Instagram, make sure to follow me at The Bride Tender for all fun facts on the wedding industry, ways to save money on your special event, and of course, hiring the best in the business for your wedding day. If you're not already following Brittany Lo, make sure to follow Brittany at Brittany.Lo. her business at Beautini, and of course her podcast at Cake for Breakfast. And, you'll get some style inspo for your special day. You'll get some pop culture from the podcast, some finance news, and, you'll get some fashion tips and business advice from Brittany Lo. Until next week, mix yourself a cocktail, slide into my DMs with questions you want answered on all things weddings. Stay sane, stay healthy. Give us a 5-star review telling everybody how stunning, sophisticated, and smart I am. And we'll see you next week. Bye.